Welcome back to the channel. This is Trendy Storm and you are watching What If Naruto Befriended Kyuubi's Daughter. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Not wasting no time, let's start the story.
In the midst of the death forest he snarled at his friends, "Will you fools hurry up before the Anbu catch us? Why should we worry? They don't care about this filth. It was easy to get him out of the house even when he was kicking and screaming." A different man replied with a snicker. The third said, drawing out a knife, "It doesn't matter from now on, what the fourth started will be finished." The first one threw a child no older than 6 to the ground and said, "Now just slash him some so that animals will come to eat it. The monster is already healing." His body was covered in cuts and bruises of various kinds. His blonde spiky hair was dripping blood, and some of his bones were broken. He was dressed in ragged clothes and had whisker marks on his cheeks. This is Naruto Uzumaki, you guessed it. He had been beaten into unconsciousness by some men who stormed into his house while he was eating dinner. The third man stabbed Naruto in the shoulder with his knife and said, "I hear some of the animals, let's get out of here." After giving a nod, the other two fled the forest. The scent of fresh blood attracted the forest's giant creatures. As they were getting closer, they all came to a halt when the boy was surrounded by blood-red chakra, which caused the animals to flee in terror from the demonic presence. Except for one small fox. This was no ordinary fox, though, rather, it was a demon fox, resembling the Kyuubi. Despite its small size, it already had 9 golden tails waving behind it. Because it was related to the Kyuubi, this fox was also extremely special. As it approaches the center, Mama the demonic fox ponders. A young girl, no older than 6, approaches Naruto as it approaches, and a dazzling white light surrounds it. "Mama, can you hear me?" she asks in a child's squeaky voice. She looks at the boy bewildered as she crawls over him. "Not Mama but as Mama," she says, grinning as she gives him a hug and feels her mother's energy enveloping her. Before the red chakra began receding into Naruto, this went on for a few minutes. Being with her mother once more did not make the demon happy. She said, her eyes welling with tears, "No, no, 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 Mama, come back." When Naruto began to feel a wet object striking his face, he began to stir. As he began to open his eyes, he thought, it must be raining. He looked up and was met with a tear welling up in his eye. He noticed a girl with blue eyes and golden blonde hair who was roughly his age. "Wah, Mama, come back," she sobs while perched on his lap. Naruto whispers to her, "Pardon me." Now that she realized Naruto was awake, the girl turned to face him. With a worried tone, Naruto asks, "Why are you crying? Are you hurt?" The girl reached out and touched his cheek, now bewildered. Naruto, who is not used to interacting with people, recoiled at the touch. "You felt like Mama, but now you don't, and you don't look like Mama either. Why is that?" she inquires. Taking a closer look at the girl, Naruto asks, "I don't understand what you mean. Who is your Mama?" She resembled him in having sky blue eyes and shoulder length, curly blonde hair that framed her face. Naruto muttered, "Beautiful," while glancing at the girl still seated on his lap. With her hand still on his whisker lines, she told him, "She left a long time ago, but you felt like her." Naruto said to her, "Oh, I'm sorry. If you're like me, then I also don't have my parents." She smiled and said, "So you're the same as me," as her tails began to wag behind her. "What the, you really are just like me," Naruto remarked, raising his fingers in a ram posture. He screams, "Kai!" and a tiny puff of smoke bursts out of him. This confused the little demon girl until the smoke cleared. Naruto was there as before, but he was a little different now. He now possessed a single blonde tail with a white tip, fox ears atop his head, and eyes that were still blue but had slits. She gloms him after blinking a few times in bewilderment. The word, family, is muttered by her smiling face. Uncertain of what he should do, Naruto froze at the contact and began to tremble in terror. The girl kept giving him joyful hugs, but she wasn't quite sure why he wasn't giving her one in return. She demanded, "Hug Tama back." "Oh. Okay, Tama. Chan," he said, mimicking her arm motions as if this were what she desired. That's how they remained until Tama relaxed. She told him that, "Mama is inside of you." This caused Naruto to blink in perplexity. Naruto questioned her, "What do you mean she talked to you? Who did?" "Mama, she said you can meet her when you are older, something about you getting hurt and scaring you," she told him. "Ah, okay," was Naruto's simple shrug. Naruto became extremely red when he saw that Tama was yawning and that she was naked. Naruto asked the girl, "Do you have any clothes, Tama-chan?" "Clothes," she said, perplexed. Naruto looked at her, who was merely confused, and thought, this can't be good. Naruto removed his shirt and handed it to her, saying, "For now, just wear this." Uncertain of what to do with it, she cocked her head to the side. He told her, put your hands over your head. Naruto puts the shirt over her head after she nods. Confused, she asks, why did you put this on me? At this, Naruto flushed and began to imitate Hinata quite well. Well, you see, with you not having clothes, I thought it would be best if you had some, she heard Naruto say. After blinking in bewilderment, she cocked her head sideways, unable to comprehend. Naruto stood up and held out his hand to her, saying, okay, let's get going. After accepting it and allowing him to lift her, she collapsed onto him. Naruto was beginning to worry about her when he heard someone growling. Hungry, is her whimper. After being stunned for a minute, Naruto began to laugh when she placed the girl on his back. As he began to leave, Naruto said to her, I have some food at me house that you can eat. She whispers, food is right here. She bit his neck, and Naruto gave her a bewildered look in return. Naruto was initially hurt, but after a while it began to feel pleasant, almost serene. As the girl kept eating off of Naruto, he asked, what are you doing, Tama? After standing there for a minute, he begins to feel his fatigue. Tama lets out a satisfied sigh and stops biting him. She greets him with a smile and says, thanks for lunch. Naruto asked, a little perplexed, what did you do? Before yawning and growing increasingly exhausted. She said, your yokai was delicious, but now I want to sleep, and as she leaned closer to Naruto's back, she gave a cute little yawn to support her claim. As he ran off to his house, Naruto said, okay, let's go then, his eyes drooping. When they arrived at the apartment building, the door had been kicked in and the walls were covered in graffiti. Among other things, these were written. Die demon, you don't belong here, give me back my family, leave, murderer. Naruto ignored them as he made his way to the bedroom. He gently placed Tama on the bed, which was fortunately not too damaged to harm us. As soon as he does, he covers himself and Tama and locks the door to his room. Good night, Tama, Naruto murmurs. She puts her arms around him as before, edging closer. Even though he was still not formally, Naruto did what he always did and dozed off. But this time, he wasn't plagued by nightmares. The following morning, a girl with purple hair decided to sneak in his window to see how her favorite Gaki was doing. When she noticed a young girl sharing a bed with him, she was, to put it mildly, shocked. As she walked over to the two, she thought poutingly, well, he moves fast. I wanted to do that first. Being just inches from Naruto's face, she leaned over the bed silently so as not to wake them. She rubbed his ears tenderly and thought, he is just too cute when he doesn't have that genjutsu on hiding these little fox features, as a chibi version of herself squealed in her mind. Wake up, Naru-chan, she whispered to him. Naruto muttered, Chan, but remained unconscious. She smiled and whispered, he's dreaming about me, and waited. Chan, h.elp, he rasped. She became alarmed when she noticed him trembling and tears welling up in his eyes. She gave him a shoulder shake and said, Naruto, wake up. Anko turned to her as his eyes snapped open and he began to perspire coldly. While giving him a gentle hug, she whispered to him, hey there Naru-chan, come here, it was just a dream. Even though he knew it was safe with Anko, he froze again without pulling away. It's alright. I won't let anyone hurt you again, I promised, remember, she told him. She was still upset in her mind about how he would always freeze at the slightest touch. She thought angrily, when I get my hands on whoever made him like this, I will make them scream for the Kyuubi to kill them. But Naruto's movement forced her to stop. She smiled slightly as she felt him nod against her chest. She asked jokingly, good, now tell me why you're with another girl. Is Naru-chan cheating on me? She giggled when she saw his face flush. He whispered, Chan, against her, but he was secretly a little afraid that Anko wouldn't abandon him. As she gives him a slightly tighter hug, she joyfully whispers to him, you are just too adorable. Now answer, she said to him in a somewhat severe tone, wanting to know without frightening him. In order to avoid upsetting Anko, Naruto said, I met her yesterday and helped her. It was a good thing, right? Given that she was the one who gave him the shirt, she knew that was a very good thing to help her, but why is she in your shirt? He whispered, she didn't have clothes, and his face was so red that it would have worried most people. She kissed his head and said, oh, so you covered her. Good boy, helping her cover her modesty. Although Naruto didn't understand what she was doing, it felt good to him. Now I will be back in a little bit and I want you to get some food ready. I am going to get her some clothes, I think Nai-chan has some that will fit her. Anko says to him as she releases him. As she went to get the girl some clothes, he gave her a nod. Naruto simply sat there and kept an eye on Tama, his new friend. After a few minutes, he notices that she is beginning to move, and he watches as she yawns and gets up to stretch. Naruto got out of bed and said, "Good morning, Tama-chan. How was your sleep?" She looked at him beseechingly and said, "Great, but I am a little hungry." With a sigh, he approached her. She extended her fangs and put her arms around his neck. "Ita takimasu," she uttered while biting his throat. As before, it hurt at first, but as she ate his yokai, the pain gradually decreased. She relaxed and sighed in satisfaction after a minute. Her words were, "Thanks for that, Naru," with joy. Naruto said to her, "You're welcome, Tama-chan. Let's get some breakfast ready now." They left the room. Naruto enters the kitchen and begins preparing some eggs and bacon for Anko's return. Immediately after finishing his meal and setting the table, Naruto heard a knock on the door. Naruto approached and noticed that Anko was carrying an arm full of clothing. She turned back to face him and said, "Gaki, let me in." Naruto obeyed and opened the door. In the brief moment it took Naruto to blink, Anko entered, seized Tama, and entered the bedroom. Naru-chan no peeking understood. Anko shouted from the other side of the door. Naruto said to her, "All right, Anko." Naruto returned to the table and arranged it so that Anko could join them for dinner. Anko and Tama left a few minutes later. Naruto looked at Tama and blushed at what he saw. Her dress was a pink sundress with black trim. It was Anko, and her hair appeared to be done without any dough. Additionally, she appeared to be wearing white sandals. With a slight flush on her face and puppy dog eyes, she asked Naruto, "Does Tama look nice?" Breaking out of his reverie, Naruto shook his head and gave her a genuine smile. He told her, "Yes, you look really nice, Tama." She began jumping up and down with excitement and let out a happy squeal. Naruto laughed at the antics of the fox girls and said to her, "Now let's eat something." After giving a nod, she sat down beside Naruto. With the exception of Tama, who gazed at the food in confusion, they sat down at the table and began to eat. Naruto swallows the food in his mouth and asks, "What's the matter, Tama-chan?" She pointed to the food on the table and said, "What is this?" Naruto told her, somewhat perplexed by her inquiry, "It's food, you eat it." "How?" she inquired, cocking her head to the side as though she was not understanding. As he cut some of his eggs and consumed the food, Naruto remarked, "You use your chopsticks to cut it and eat it like this." She reaches for her chopsticks, but when she tries to do what Naruto did, they slip from her grasp. Naruto gave her a little smile and said, "If you want, I can teach you." She gave a joyful nod. Naruto places some of the eggs in front of her and says, "Okay, I'll do that after breakfast and so the food doesn't get cold. Say ah." She followed instructions and began consuming the food. As she cheerfully eats more of it, she murmurs, "It's good." Although a little taken aback, Naruto was pleased to receive the compliment. Until they are finished, the group eats in quiet. Anko hugs Gaki and presses her cheek against his, saying, "Okay, Gaki, I'm going on a mission, but I just wanted to see my little Naru-chan." Naruto writhes in her arms and says, "Chan, stop that, it's embarrassing." Anko gives him a cheek kiss and leaves, leaving a flushed Naruto and a perplexed Tama behind. "Okay, fine, but anyway got to go," she says. "What was that?" Tama asked, cocking her head to the side, wondering why she felt the need to burn Anko alive. Naruto told her, "That was a kiss," in an embarrassed tone. Tama people who like one another do that. "Oh," was her understanding response as she began to imagine what it must have been like. Anko popped through the door once more and then took off, saying, "Oh right, the Hokage wants to see you by the way Naru-chan see ya." As he approaches the door, Naruto asks her, "Okay, Tama-chan, would you like to come?" "Yes," she said joyfully as she began to follow him around. Naruto points to her ears and tails and tells her, "But you have to hide your fox features." The sad statement, "But this is the best Tama can do," is made as her ears and tails droop. Naruto tells her, "Then hold my hand, I can make sure your features stay hidden." She joyfully took his hand after nodding. He transformed them so they appeared normal, and they walked together to the Hokage office. Naruto heard the civilians whispering to him on the way. "It's the demon brat. He took that little girl hostage. Do you think we should save her? No, she is too far gone, we should get rid of both of them together." Naruto smiles broadly and says, "Tama, let's hurry." He and Tama begin jogging in an attempt to reach the Hokage's office as soon as possible. Due to the secretary's close friendship with Naruto, they arrive at and enter the Hokage's office with ease. She was rather plain looking and had short brown hair. She was in her late 20s and had light brown eyes. After Naruto helped her land the job after her husband threw her out on the streets, taking everything with him, she stopped believing that he was the demon. After helping her 2 years ago, he asked his Gigi the following day if she could get a job. She has been assisting him ever since he appointed her as his secretary. Yumi smiles warmly as she says, "Hello Naruto, how are you?" He told her, "I'm okay, Yumi. Ni-chan, I was going to go see Gigi." She teased, "Okay, Naruto, come over for dinner sometime. You can even bring your girlfriend if you want," and got the desired outcome. Why? Why? Yumi. He stammered, making her laugh at his antics. She enjoyed making fun of him whenever she could, just like Anko. After she stops laughing, she says, "He will see you, Naru." With a bewildered Tama in tow, he simply humps at her before heading inside. Naruto greets him, "Hi Gigi," as he peers at him through all of the paperwork. He asks, "Hello Naruto, and who would this little one be?" After noticing that Tama cannot recall ever seeing her in the village. Her explanation that Tama is Tama and is with Naruto caused the Hokage to chuckle at her speech pattern. He got him to look at him and said, "That's good to know, so Naruto, do what I wanted to ask you." He smiles at him, already anticipating his response, and asks, "Would you like to join the ninja program? If you say yes and Tama wants to join as well, then I shall allow it." "Wahhhoo" is Naruto's cry as he begins to jump with joy. Tama became engrossed in it and began to jump with him, laughing the entire time. When Sarutobi saw the two, he couldn't help but laugh. As he registered the two for the academy that began tomorrow, he said, "I will take that as a yes." He handed them their papers after they both gave him a quick nod. "Alright, tomorrow give this to the instructors and they will put you into a class together, alright," he told them. Naruto said, "Alright Gigi," and removed the papers from his grasp. "Alright, you two get out of here and I will take you to Ichiraku tomorrow as a reward for your first day at school," said the man. The thought makes Naruto smile, and they leave. Sarutobi chuckled and remarked, "She might be good for Naruto. He has that light in his eyes again." In the home, as they removed their shoes, Tama asked him, "Naru, what should we do?" Naruto told her, "We could play games," and began to list the people he knew. She gets excited and asks, "Really, what game would we play?" thinking that playing with Naru might be enjoyable. Given that the two could play hide and seek inside the house, Naruto proposed, "Well, we could play that." Her innate curiosity overcame her and she asked, "Oh, how do you play?" Naruto tells her, "Well, one of us hides while the other seeks to find." She begins bouncing up and down with excitement and tells him, "Okay, let's play. I want to be it." He turns to go hide, but he stops when he hears her question. "Okay, now you need to count to 10 and try to find me," he says to her joyfully. When he heard her ask, "How do you count?" he felt like a fool. He approaches her with a smile and says, "I'll teach you." She enthusiastically nods, and they begin teaching one another things. Eventually, they stop playing hide and seek. They discussed their knowledge, and Tama surprised Naruto by teaching him a lot about plants and animals. On the other hand, Naruto taught her about his knowledge of reading, numbers, and other general skills that she would need to function in the village on a daily basis. Tama yawned, interrupting their conversation. This perplexed Naruto, who turned to look outside and saw that night had already fallen. Happily, he thought, Chan was right, time does fly when you are having fun. She rubbed her eyes and told him, "Tama, I'm hungry and sleepy." Naruto had no food, but his stomach rumbled a little too. "Okay, how about you eat and then we got to bed to get to the academy early tomorrow," she replied to Naruto. She gives Naruto a nod, crawls up to him, and bites his neck once more to get her fill of his yokai. After she finished, Naruto and Tama simply went to his bed, just like the previous night, because they were both exhausted. She called him, "Naru," to get his attention. Naruto looks at her and asks, "What is it, Tama?" She recalls the kiss and asks him, "What was that thing you did with him, Chan?" This caused Naruto's face to flush a lot, and as he tried to explain, his bangs began to cover his eyes. Recalling that she had previously asked this question, Naruto said to her, W. Well that W was K.K.K.Ki. Kissing. Curious, she asks, "Does it feel good?" It sounded a lot like licking to her, and she enjoyed having her mother lick her because it always made her feel special. ITF. F. Feels nice, he murmurs to her, recalling the comforting sensation he gets from Enko's kiss. She gives him the puppy dog eyes and asks, "Please let me try it, Naru." Naruto made the foolish decision to investigate it, knowing that Yumi, Ni-chan, the ramen people, and Chan, Chan, Gigi, and now Tama, Chan were the only people in the village who were kind to him. He gave it some thought. Chan was the only person to kiss him, and he was a little afraid of how close they were without any pain. He nodded to her and thought, I'll try again. She leaned over to him as before, squealing joyfully. Naruto felt her kiss his lips instead of his cheek or head, as he had expected Chan to do. He was taken aback by this and initially began to shake because he was unfamiliar with the sensation. He leaned in as he felt Tama put her arms around his neck and draw him in. With her, he began to feel secure and warm. He was sad to lose the feeling, though, when she let go of the kiss. Her face was flushed, and she said, that felt really nice. Can I do that to you again, Naru? Despite his still fried brain, Naruto nodded and turned to face her. Still grinning a little from the kiss, Naruto told her, another time, Tama, let's get some sleep for now. After giving him a nod, they approach his bed, get a few inches closer, and nestle into his chest. Naruto cradles her in his arms once more and murmurs, good night, Tama. Chan. Night, Naru.kun. She whispers back, nuzzling him and grinning broadly at the warmth. He closed his eyes to go back to sleep after grinning at the pleasant feeling of being near Tama. The following morning Naruto stirred as the sun's rays touched his face. Additionally, he felt extremely warm, as if a soft blanket were covering him, and he curled up on it for a little while before remembering that he needed to get up. After attempting to stretch as he usually does in the morning, he discovers that he is unable to move his right arm or stand up. He heard a whining sound just as he was about to panic, thinking that someone had tied him down while he was asleep. He was perplexed by this and turned to see Tama holding him tightly with her 9 tails draped over him, using him as a pillow, and grinning contentedly. As she huddled closer to him, she muttered, 5 more minutes, Naru. As the memories of last night returned to him, Naruto was flushed. He nudged her a little and whispered, no can do Tama, we have school remember. She looks at him with a pout on her face and puffy cheeks, putting up a feeble fight in her fatigue. She complained, you're no fun, Naru, as she stood up and began to stretch like a cat. Following her example, Naruto begins stretching in an attempt to rouse himself. With a stick of dango in her mouth, Anko sits on the window ledge and smiles at the two, saying, Naru. Chan, you're up, that's good. Tama tilts her head to the side, perplexed as to how she got there without her noticing, and Naruto flies back in surprise. She takes out a bag and says, I got you two a present for your fist day at the academy. Tama was still perplexed as Naruto looked at it in shock. Tama thinks, what's a present, can I eat it, as she approaches Naruto and the purple-headed ninja. She hands Naruto a pair of orange wristbands with seals on the outside and says, yes, hold your praise till you get it. She indicated the one on the inside and remarked, these are seals that have 3 designs to them. She turned to one of the exterior seals and said, this one will wear me if you are in trouble, all you have to do is remove one of them and I will know. She pointed to the final one and said, this is a storage seal that will allow you to hold enough things that you could survive a week on rations and hold weapons in it. As she placed them on his wrist, she told him, this one is to help you with training, they will make your body naturally heavier so that you can train all the time even when you are just walking around. As she completed placing them on him, she said, now to activate them in order, remove if you are in trouble, smear a little blood and focus on what you want out, and finally more chakra, more weight. He gives her a joyful hug after she gives him a gift. This surprised her because the other day he froze at this kind of contact but still smiled and gave it back with joy. As she gazed at the young blonde girl who was staring at them with a desire in her eyes as if she wanted to join, she thought, thanks, Fox Girl. You were able to do something I couldn't. She gestured to Tama and said, okay, now for you. With a smile on her face, Tama hopped over to her and waited in front of her. She pulled out a necklace that had a cross and a tiny ruby in the center, similar to Anko's, and a thick chain. Okay, I know that you have a problem hiding your fox features fully, so I am going to help you with this, she said. In search for 941, Victorian, filigree, ruby, pearl dot and garnet, cross, necklace, on Google, substituting silver for gold. This was made by my friend Kurenai and will put up an illusion that you look like a normal person and does it as long as it is in the presence of chakra, she told her. With a nod, Tama picked it up and approached Naruto. She holds it out to him and asks, can you put it on Tama? Her face is slightly flushed. Naruto accepted it and began putting it on her after nodding and grinning a little. Tama leaned in closer when he did. Shoo, she says, kissing him on the lips, causing him to flush once more. Seeing him get kissed made Anko squint. As she watched him stand there with his brain fried, she thought, damn Naru. Chan really does move fast. As he grabs the two, she says, alright, come on, lover boy. You got academy. They head to the kitchen, where a plate of dango is waiting for them. Anko undoubtedly did it, but Naruto and Tama couldn't figure out how she got them there. As she begins to eat her beloved dango, she smiles and says to them, "Okay, then let's eat and then I get to drop you off at the academy. Ibuki said I could be a little late today." Tama and Naruto simply shrug and join her in eating. They prepare for school after breakfast. Anko got Naruto an outfit last week, which he put on. It was a loose fitting black shirt adorned with snakes. In addition, he paired black sandals with black anbu pants. Tama was dressed in a long, sleeved, pink shirt with flower petals. She wears this with white sandals and tan pants. As she picks up the blonde Hanyu and gives him a bear hug, Anko squeals, "Naru-chan, you're wearing what I bought you, it looks so cute." Despite a slight freeze, Naruto takes the hug and gives it back a little unsteadily. When he finally gave her a hug back, Anko was ecstatic and broke into one of her genuine smiles. She remembers something as they begin to walk to the academy after she finally lets him go. She rubs her mark, sending Naruto a secret message. "Oh, right before I forget, there is a kid that will be joining the academy with you. She is a year older, but I want for you to be friends with her, please." A few years ago, she showed it to him, and when he agreed, she vowed to take care of him whenever she could without displaying any concern. In an attempt to learn at least a little bit about her, Naruto asked, "Okay, and Chan, what's her name?" "Her name is Tayuya. My team found her a few weeks ago and she was given the first stage," she told him. Since Anko also had the first stage of the curse mark and was aware of what it did to her, Naruto understood what she was talking about right away. Naruto smiled warmly and said, "I will do what I can, and Chan." When Anko notices this, he smiles back. She tells him, "Thank you, Naru-chan, I truly appreciate this." They reach the destination shortly after. He simply gives her a nod. "Alright, got to go, Naru-tama." Tayuya is easy to spot. She has a bad mouth and has long red hair with a black cap on her head. Anko responds. Naruto says, "Okay, and Chan, have fun at work." Tama says, "Bye-bye, snaky lady." Anko raised an eyebrow at the nickname, but she dismissed it because she had heard worse. "Bye-bye, my little foxes," she whispered in their ears as she hugged them both and hushed off. In order to determine their placement, Naruto and Tama enter the building and locate the office. Naruto hands the paper to the woman behind the counter and says, "Hello miss, where do we go?" The woman takes the paper from him and says, "Well, let's see." She quickly glances at it and notices the room number. She tells them, "Ah, you are new here. You are in room 203. "Thank you," is Naruto's joyful way of saying goodbye before he takes Tama's hand and pulls her into the room. With a spring in her step, she starts to follow him. "What nice kids." The woman smiles and then glares back at them, as she confronts her archenemy. Paperwork. Naruto and Tama enter the classroom without any problems. The majority of the clan heirs are visible when they arrive. After a few bystanders, Naruto spots the girl Anko was referring to. She was wearing a black cap. She had one thick bang in front of her face and her hair fell down to her back. Although she had dark brown eyes, Naruto could tell by the look she was giving him. She had a lonely expression, and it was clear from her body language that she did not feel at ease around so many people. Tama tugged at his shirt to get his attention. She tells him, "I smell a siren, Naru." Naruto was perplexed since he was unaware of the monsters' names. Naruto approaches and sits next to Tayuya, whispering to her, "Tell me when you figure out who it is, but in the meantime let's go and say hi to Anko's friend." She regarded them with confusion and anger at the same time. She demanded angrily that they leave her alone, asking, "Why the fuck are you sitting near me?" Naruto laughed as he listened to her language and remarked, "Wow, she was right about your mouth." She blinked in bewilderment before realizing who they were referring to and her eyes widened. As she gazed at the two, she exclaimed, "You know Anko?" in surprise. Naruto grinned as he said to her, "Yes, she is very close to us. She was the one who told us about you." Tama excitedly told the girl, "Yan Chan told Naru and Tama to meet you and see if you wanted to be friends." When Tayuya said that, her expression darkened. She questioned angrily, "So you only want to be my friend because you were asked to?" Naruto immediately shook his head. No. Naruto put out the bait to win her over by saying, "No, we wanted to know if you wanted to be friends. If you do not want to, then we won't." She would be considering whether it was safe at this moment before accepting if he was correct about the expression in her eyes. Tayuya got lost in thought, just as Naruto did. Okay, so they want to be friends, but they also said that it was because of Anko. However, since Anko saved me, if she believes them, then they should also be good people. The boy may be trying to hide it, but his eyes have the same expression as mine. she thought, and then she looked up at them. Naruto extends his hand to her and asks, "So Yuya-chan, do you want to be friends?" After staring at it for a minute, she gives him a death glare and nods. She grinned and said, "Okay, we can be friends, but you don't have the right to call me Chan just yet, shithead." Tama shouts, "Yay," as she crushes Yuya in an embrace. She began pushing her away and yelled, "Hey, get the fuck off of me, blonde," but she persisted in giving her a passionate hug. Before he yanked Tama away from her and sat between them, Naruto was laughing at the altercation between the two. Tama began to pout because she didn't receive a hug in return. Naruto asks her, "Tama, what's wrong?" because he is a little concerned about her and dislikes it when she appears depressed. She muttered she didn't hug Tama back, and then she seemed to have an epiphany. Her voice was small as she turned to face him, her eyes beseeching. "Naru," she said. She held out her arms as if she wanted him to embrace her instead, but Naruto was perplexed. She tackled Naruto before he could respond, and she was now sitting on his lap, joyfully hugging him. With a sigh, Naruto gave her a hug in return and petted her head, causing her to purr with satisfaction. Yuya looks at Tama and asks, "What the hell is she, a dog?" When Kiba heard the remark, he yelled, "Hey, I take offense to that." Akamaru, his companion, yelled in agreement. Kiba shrank back when Yuya glared at him and said, "I wasn't talking to you, dog breath." As he turned around again, he thought fearfully, "Holy hell, she has the same eyes as Mom and Hannah." Naruto continues to rub Tama's head and responds, "And to answer your question, Yuya, she is no dog, she is just very affectionate." She nods and observes that he is trembling a little, but it wasn't cold because the room was warm. As she begins to consider it, Yuya thinks angrily, is he afraid of contact? Then what the hell is that girl doing by tackling him like that? At this point, the instructors choose to enter the classroom. He smiles as he greets the class. "Hello students. This is Mizuki and my name is Iruka. We will be your senseis for the time that you are here at the academy." Everybody examines the new senseis they will be living with for the ensuing 4 years. "Well, Tama, they could be entertaining," Naruto murmurs to her. The fox girl simply cuddled closer to him and fell back asleep because she was too busy getting petted to pay attention to what he was saying. As he continues to rub her head, Naruto can't help but laugh even though he is sweating at the sight. Considering that Naruto, Tama, and Yuya simply dozed off during the lectures and that it was already time for lunch when they woke up, the class went by rather quickly. Fortunately, Yuya woke up first, so they were unaware, but she ended up sleeping on Naruto and using him as a pillow. When he asked her what was wrong, she ended up not cursing because she was so shocked. Iruka saw that and was aware of the three, so he accepted the fact that they had slept in his class, for the time being. Iruka told the students, "Okay, class, it's time to go eat your lunches. Be back here in an hour." With a collective exclamation, they all stepped outside. In the end, Tama pulled Yuya and Naruto to a tree and sat beneath it. Gazing at Naruto, Tama questioned, "So what do we have to eat?" Naruto bit his thumb, causing it to bleed a little, and then wiped it on the seal, saying, "Don't know in. Chan said she had something in here for us." 3 plates appeared in an instant. They all ate meatloaf with broccoli on the side and some spicy sauce on top. Another plate was covered when a knot emerged. "Hello, Gakis. I hope you like the food I prepared. Go ahead and eat. You deserve to be famous. P.S. to Yuya, this is a treat for all of you." A chibi representation of Anko's head winking with her head protruding and making the V sign was located at the bottom. The group's perspiration fell, but Naruto grinned because he knew her. Naruto hands Yuya a plate and says, "Here, eat up." She complained, "I ain't hungry, shithead," but her stomach had other ideas. After blushing in shame, she noticed that Naruto was still offering her the food. She humped, accepted the food, and grinned at its flavor. While eating, Tama was expressing gratitude to Naruto for teaching her how to use chopsticks the previous evening. After finishing, they chose to examine the final plate and discovered chocolate chip cookies on it. Yuya will now attempt to deny this fact for years to come, but she squealed like a schoolgirl and happily ate her snack, the entire plate. When Naruto and Tama saw this, their perspiration stopped, but they also burst out laughing at their new friend's behavior toward her snack. The key word here is tried because Yuya leveled them with a glare that would have made a wet himself when Naruto and Tama attempted to grab some of the cookies. Naruto said, "Yuya, please let us try them." After glaring at them for a full minute, she realized they were only trying, so she sighed and gave them one of the cookies. "Here," she murmured, still chowing down on her priceless candy. Both of them tasted a tiny portion after Naruto broke it in half. After a brief moment of shock, they ate the remainder of the delicious creation. Naruto caught himself before he had to face the wrath of the redheads, saying, I see why Tayuya.ch-san likes them so much. She utters the words, damn right I do dipshit, between bites. Tama reprimands Tayuya, saying, be nice to Naru, she dislikes her insulting him. Or what? She growls, angry that someone was attempting to give her instructions. As the cookie plate floats away from Tama and into her lap, she has a sinister twinkle in her eye. With a malicious gleam in her eye, she says, or you don't get any more cookies, ever. To be honest, Tayuya was having a mental breakdown. Even though she had only learned about cookies a week prior, she was already completely dependent on them. She holds them out and says, okay, Naruto, I'm sorry. Can I have my cookies back now? Tama and Naruto nod as they notice the deportation in her eyes. Tama hands them back and says, here you go, Tayuya. With joy, she returns and begins to eat them once more. They keep doing this until Naruto spots a boy sitting apart from other people, whom he thought was Shino. Naruto approached him and said, girls, I'll be back in a minute. They simply shrugged and resumed their meal. He looks up from his meal at Naruto as he approaches him. Uzumaki-san, may I be of assistance to you? He asks monotonically. Naruto smiles and extends his hand to him, saying, well, I saw you sitting by yourself and I was wondering if you wanted to sit with us. This perplexed Shino, who turned to examine his hand. With a smile that never goes away, Naruto asks, come on, it's more fun to eat with friends. Shino was shocked by this, but he only raised an eyebrow because his family has instilled in him since he was a young child the value of displaying no emotion. Confused, he said, you consider me a friend, Uzumaki-san. Taking the boy by the hand, Naruto began pulling him along with him, saying, why not? It's good to have friends. Shino was glad to be included even though he didn't want to. They were, of course, only acknowledged by other members of the clan because of his family. He noticed a perplexing scene when they returned. He honestly believed that Tama and Tayuya were going to cry as they gazed up at Naruto with teary eyes. His voice was full of concern as he asked, Tayuya, Tama-chan, what's wrong? After saying, Naru, sniff, all the meat sniff, it's gone, Tama threw herself at him and began sobbing as if her puppy had been kicked or something. Despite his perspiration stopping at this point, Naruto began to console her. When discussing her issue, Tayuya was a little less tactless. My cookies, she cried out into the sky. When Shino heard that, his own sweat drop grew larger than Naruto's. Shino pushed his glasses up a little and said, well, Naruto-san, I think we figured out why they are sad, they don't have any more food. Naruto patted Tama's head, who was now sniffling at her misplaced food, and remarked, I agree completely. Iruka shouted, all right, kids, it's time to come in. With a nod, everyone began to move inside. The seating was the same when they did, but Shino was now seated beside Tama. Alright, now we will be talking about our Hokages, Iruka replied. The group also received a translation of that. Please go to sleep while I continue to talk about history. After following this advice, they found themselves in a situation that was very similar to the one they had been in before the class ended. Just before class ended, Shino awoke the group to prevent them from being thrown a piece of chalk once more. Iruka said, okay, everyone, have a safe journey home. As they fled the room, the class fell into a frenzy. Naruto asks, Shino, would you like to come with us? Curious, Shino asks, come with you or? Naruto asks him if he wants to join them as they go eat some ramen. Given that Shino was his first male friend, Naruto hoped he could attend and wanted to begin developing a brotherly bond, just as Gigi had mentioned he would with friends. As a few bugs fly out of his coat and head to his house, he tells Naruto, I do not see a problem doing this, I will send some bugs to tell my family I will be a little late. Naruto questioned, you control bugs? While observing the bug fly off. He asks, yes, is that a problem? With a hint of concern that he might frighten the first child outside of his clan to approach him. Naruto grinned and began to leave, followed closely by Tama and Tayuya. No way, I think it's cool. As he trailed behind the group, Shino thought, he doesn't find me creepy. A recognizable purple-haired special Junin materialized in front of them halfway to the tower. Hey Naru, Tama, Tayuya, and company, the Hokage sent me. He says sorry Naru, but he can't bring you out to eat ramen because a council meeting was called in last minute. She tells him. She sees that this quickly makes him depressed, so she waves her hands in front of him to get his attention once more. She smiled broadly and said, but he did send me to bring you instead. At this information, Naruto and Tayuya become happier. Fuck y'all, Tayuya exclaims joyfully, but Tama gives him a light headshake. After telling her not to swear, she clings to Naruto's arm once more. Kyuubi grabs Naruto's other arm and begins tugging him, shouting, "I'll curse when I wanna," and stop clinging to him. According to Tama, "No, get off, he is mine," as she retreats. Kyuubi yells, "Get off," as she tugs once more, "My own." "No, he isn't my own, get out," Tama shouts, "Naru, tell her." As she attempts to yank him away once more, Kyuubi yells, "Stick up for yourself, Naruto." "Shino, and Chan, help me," Naruto cries in desperation as his shoulders begin to move. Anko stops Shino just as he was about to assist. She simply holds him back and tells him, "No can do, Buggy, this is too much fun to watch." They heard a popping and ripping sound after a few more minutes of this tug of war. The shoulders of Naruto exploded from their sockets. OOOOWWWW. Additionally, Anko's shirt lost its sleeves. There were two reasons why Anko was wearing a death cloud when she gazed at Naruto. She could see through his genjutsu to see all of the scars, but especially the ones over his left wrist. She bought that damn shirt, which was the second reason. She yells, "I brought that shirt for Naru, I'll kill you," as she begins to chase after the two girls who are attempting to flee through the streets. Shino approached Naruto and placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. He told him, "I'm sorry I couldn't help you, but Anko-san was holding me back." Naruto pointed to the limp limbs dangling at his sides and said, "Ah, it's okay, but could you help me get my shoulders back in place?" With a simple nod, he started helping him with his shoulders. His arms were fine again after a few stretches and 2 brief yelps of pain. Anko returned a few minutes later with 2 girls who were crying. Kyuubi pleaded with the woman, "Please don't ban my cookies, I said I was sorry." "You can't do that, I can't deal with not hugging Naru," Tama sighed. As she pulled them back, Anko told the two, "Well, this is punishment for ripping the shirt I bought him." As she quickly cloned a snake and went to get her new clothes for Naruto, Anko said, "Hey Naru-chan, how about that ramen?" Naruto jumped at her and gave her a hug, saying, "Thank you," and Chan. After dropping Tama and Kyuubi like a bad habit, Anko happily returned everything. They visited Naruto's favorite stand after their bonding. Naruto shouted, "Tuchi! Gigi, get me some ramen." Naruto was seen by the elderly man who emerged from behind the counter. He smiles and says, "Naruto, my boy, how have you been? I haven't seen you in a month." Before Naruto could respond, a brown-haired bullet shot out at him. It shouted, "Naruto!" as she threw him to the ground and gave him a fierce hug. Before getting a better look at the girl, Naruto froze, unsure of who it was. "Ayame.ne-chan," was Naruto's joyful greeting, but he was unable to return the hug since she was also somewhat crushing his arms. As she keeps crushing on him, she asks, "Where have you been? I missed you so much." Kyuubi thought, "Who the hell is this and what is she doing with my Naruto? Wait, my Naruto, we only met today." Looking at the girl who was holding him, Tama was thinking the same thing. As Tucci emerged from behind the counter to pull his daughter away from the boy, he said, "Okay, I know you missed him, but I don't think he can breathe." She accompanied him behind the counter after he eventually accomplished this. "I apologize, Naru, but I was unable to control myself," Ayame told him. Naruto told her, "It's okay, Chan, you couldn't control yourself." She gave him a smile before turning to face the other people. She takes out a notepad and asks, "So what can I get ya?" Anko had a bunch of dango, Shino had some miso ramen, and everyone else told her their orders, which were all copies of Naruto's. A cutting knife was discovered haphazardly stuck very near to what a man values most by some of the patrons who attempted to disturb them while they were eating in silence. It goes without saying that they disappeared from the store. Naruto bid them all farewell when they were all done, however, not before Ayame gave him another bullet tackle. The words, "Goodbye Naru, be good," were spoken by Ayame as she released him. After Naruto gave a nod, they parted ways. Shino was about to turn away after saying, "Goodbye Uzumaki-san, it was nice," when he felt a hand resting on his shoulder. He spun around to find Naruto frowning slightly at him. Naruto extended his hand and said, "Stop being so formal and unfamiliar. We are friends." After examining it for several minutes, Shino shook it. "You're right, Naruto," he said, causing Naruto to smile like a fox once more. Naruto released his hand and remarked, "You got that right, Shino." Naruto says, "Night," to Kyuubi and Anko. Kyuubi says, "Good night, Naruto," as she senses Anko placing a hand on her shoulder. As they vanish through Sushin, Anko says, "Night Naru, see you tomorrow." Naruto tells her, "All right, let's go to bed, Tama-chan," As she grabs his arm and they stroll through the village, she joyfully shakes her head. It is nighttime when they arrive at his house. Naruto reaches for his own clothes and says, "All right, Tama. Go get changed in the bedroom." With a nod, she enters. He quickly changes into an orange shirt and gray sweatpants as the sounds of clothing being thrown can be heard. She says through the door, "Okay, Tama has changed." Naruto mentally noted that she should work on her speech later. Naruto said, "All right." As he walked into the room, he noticed that Tama was dressed similarly to him, with the exception that her shirt was purple. After Naruto swiftly climbed into the bed, Tama took off her necklace and fanned her tail behind her. Naruto exposed his ears and tail after taking off his genjutsu. Tama puts her head on his shoulder, cuddles up to him, and drapes her tails over him as she says, "Night-night, Naru." Naruto simply encircles her with his arm and tail before dozing off. His face lit up with a smile, hoping that more days like this would come. 4 years have passed. After maturing over the years, our little Hanyu is now 15 years old and half-blood. His hair has a feral appearance and is now down to his shoulders. He wears it in a short ponytail. He was the tallest person in his class, standing at about 4 feet 11 inches. His canines were clearly visible, and his whisker lines were darker. His eyes can become slits when he is upset, but they still have the same sky blue hue. Because of Enko's friend Yugo's constant drilling, he has taken up Kenjutsu and was almost a Junin level with his long sword. According to Tama, he should be extremely proud of his 3 tails, which he now possesses. Speaking of whom, Tama has shoulder length hair and is currently 4 feet 8 inches. She has a natural talent for using foxfire jutsu, which her mother taught her. She had the perfect amount of curvature in her C-cup bust. Her cheerful disposition has cooled over time as she has witnessed the village's treatment of her Naru-kun. When she is with him, she acts normally, but when she is not, she treats people coldly and cruelly. She and Tayuya continue their acrimonious competition to see who can get him, but given the current state of affairs, they are beginning to consider sharing him. Naruto was described by her mother as a dime a dozen, or something similar. She only knew that she enjoyed being with him. In relation to Tayuya, she has also developed over the past 4 years. Her hair reaches the middle of her back, and she is currently 4 feet 9 inches tall. She discovered how to use genjutsu to make her hobby of playing the flute lethal. As a result of cursing out those who disparage her Naruto, she has become rather foul-mouthed over the years. The condo room next to Naruto and Tama's is where she and Enko reside. She didn't trust having the two of them together alone, so she took it upon herself to sleep over their house most of the time to make sure nothing happened. She and Naruto have grown closer, and he was successful in securing for her a summoning contract for drones that complement the music because he knew she would enjoy it. They would all take their final exam at school today, and tomorrow they would form their teams. Let's move on to the narrative. The sun was shining through Naruto's room's curtains when he woke up. He looked down in mild bewilderment as he tried to rub his eyes, but his arms refused to cooperate. He noticed that Tayuya and Tama were once again sleeping on him, which was the cause. They got into this habit about a year ago and he didn't complain because they helped keep away the nightmares and they were very warm, so he had no complaints. With 2 of his tails wrapped around her to keep her warm, Tayuya was cuddling on the bend of his neck. While his tail was wrapped around her stomach and she was cuddling it and him like a teddy bear, Tama was on the other side, on top of his chest, her tails draped over the 2. Normally, he would just let them sleep, but he tried to wake them up because he knew it was graduation day and he didn't want to be late. Naruto tried to wake them up by whispering, "Tama. Chan Tayu. Chan, it's time to wake up, it's the last day." There were 2 reasons he knew not to wake them up violently. One, Tayuya, who believes Enko influenced her, was a terrible morning person and is extremely violent when he wakes up. Although Tama wasn't violent, she lacked self-control when she was tired, and when she accidentally tore the door off their house while she wasn't fully in control, he became concerned. As she began to crush him and cling to his warmth, Tama muttered in her sleep, "Pillow. Chan, stop moving." Tayuya swore as she put her arm around his neck and began strangling him. 5 more minutes, she muttered. T.am. A. T.I.uy. Ayo. C.ru. Shingmi. Naruto managed to get out as he heard his back start to crack. The sounds of Naruto in agony instantly roused both girls. Some nights they would wake up to his screaming from nightmares of past pain he suffered from the village. On those nights when they held a scared Naruto who was so mentally fragile that they thought he would break if they weren't there, it only made them hate this place more. They immediately let go after realizing they were crushing him. He was relieved to be able to breathe again and was gasping for air a moment later. Naruto jokes, thanks for letting go of pillow. Chan. The girls blush in rage at his lighthearted remark. He glanced at the two and chuckled a little. But it's time to get up, we have finals today and we will be able to cut loose according to Chan. Naruto told them. Since they were all in the middle of the class and were not permitted to use more than 10% of their abilities, they both brightened at this point. Kyuubi stood up and stretched in her pajamas, asking, speaking in Enko, where is she? With a shrug, Naruto stood up, followed by Tama. As he heads to the kitchen to prepare the food, Naruto remarks, don't know, normally she comes out of nowhere. While the girls get dressed for the day, he puts the pan on the stove and begins preparing some eggs and sausages. Enko yells, surprise, as she leaps down from the ceiling and tackles Naruto to the ground the moment he leaves to get food. As her impressive bust suffocated him, she was entirely on top of him, covering him with her trench coat. Hi Naru, she said joyfully, nuzzling his ears with her cheek, enjoying their softness. On the other hand, Naruto was somewhat accustomed to her doing this, and he was unable to breathe despite realizing how fortunate he was that she was doing this to him. However, it was among the top 5 options. He began talking to her, but his voice was muffled. After tapping her shoulder to get her attention, she shivered a little from the vibrations, but she relaxed her hold a little because she knew he needed to breathe. To her dismay at losing her Fluffy, Naruto used that moment to catch his breath and got to his feet. He gave her a joyful hug, which startled her. He greeted her from the shoulder, saying, hello Chan, it's good to see you. She was shocked by this but hugged him tightly, happy with the warmth that he gave back to her. As they continued their brief moment of bonding, she thought joyfully, you have improved so much in just 4 years. When he let go to resume cooking, she was saddened. However, that was soon over as he gave her the all clear to play with them by rubbing his tails around her. Which, with great prejudice, she did. When Kyuubi and Tama finished eating, they emerged to find Enko playing with Naruto's tails like a child and the other tails wrapped around her like a fur cocoon, which made her laugh. The two grin at Enko's innate playfulness but perspire at the sight of this. Tama sat at her seat and asked, Naru, what's for breakfast? Kyuubi grinned and said, Ya Naruto, I'm starving, as she kept watching Enko laugh at Naruto's incessant tickling. Naruto grinned and said, I made you some eggs and bacon. The idea of being able to eat some meat made Tama jump with excitement. It made Kyuubi happy to eat. Somehow, he carried it to the table while the Enko hung from him. Naruto tried to sit down, but Enko was still hanging on his back. All right, girls, dig in and Enko, can you get off of me? He said. Despite her pout, she let go and brought one of his tails to her chair, which caused everyone to perspire. Ignoring her, the group simply began eating in order to prepare for the test. When they were done and Naruto managed to get his tails back, they all were waiting at the front waiting for Naruto. When Naruto appeared, the 3 of them looked at him with astonished smiles and a hint of lust. Nero's attire is dark blue, with the exception of the undershirt, and he has a picture of the Kyuubi on his right arm of the jacket. While the sleeve on his left arm is up, revealing his forearm, the one on his right arm is completely down. As she tackled him, Tama exclaimed, Naru, you look amazing. She wasn't particularly ugly either. She was wearing a long, sleeved, dark blue belly shirt with a black trim. She wore flip-flops because she enjoyed fighting without footwear and wore black Anbu pants. As she looked at Naruto with a slight flush, Kyuubi joked, Naruto, don't go and try making any fangirls. Her attire consisted of a gray shirt with swirling music notes all over it. She had bandages wrapped around her regular cap. It made her 3 horns on top of her head easier to hide. Even though her horns are rather small, one could see the white horns sticking out of her bright red hair. She had a flute holster on her right hip and a weapons patch on her left, and she was wearing skin-tight pants. Enko noticed this and approached him, head lowered, slapping his shoulders with her hands as she did so. Naruto, she muttered, barely audible. He stared at her in confusion, not accustomed to seeing her in such a state, and he began to worry a little. Then, shocking everyone, she fell to the ground in a bowing motion. She shouted, teach us your ways. Silence fell. Then our friendly sadist Enko's antics and much needed laughter. She whipped some tears from her eyes and got off the ground, laughing herself. She grinned and said to them, okay, but really, Naru, you look amazing. Now, go to class and blow them away, no holding back, you hear. The 3 of them stood together and grinned as they nodded to her. She handed him his new sword and said, all right, here you go. Naruto Yugo said to give this to you. The case was black and featured a fire symbol on the front. Everyone in the room gasped in surprise as Naruto opened it up after giving it a curious look. His sword has a blue vein-like pattern that gives it more chakra power, and it resembles Nero's from Devil May Cry. He picked up the sword and found that it felt the most comfortable in his hands of all the swords Yugo had given him. 3 things caught his attention as he peered back inside. A note, instructions, and a repair kit were included, along with the address of a blacksmith she knew who could fix any damage. He also saw that the sword had a stick seal close to the handle, which allowed the sword to easily stick to his back. Naruto put it on his back and made it stick, saying, "Sweet," with a big fox grin. The grip was well over his head, and it was just barely hanging off the ground. Anko handed him the note and said, "Oh, read the note, Naru, I want to know what she said." Naruto opened it and began reading, giggling a little at the opening line. "It was undoubtedly Anko who instructed you to read this, Naruto. I hope you enjoy the sword." Anko took a shocked pose at this. She inquired, "Is she sick?" "And no, I'm not psychic, Anko. Naru couldn't read my mind. She must just be saying these things," Anko pondered. "And it's very easy to predict what you'll say next, Anko, even though I can't read your mind." This shocked Anko even more, and she began reading over Naruto's shoulder, believing he was playing a practical joke on her. There were even moments when she would be thinking or speaking, but to her horror, he was not present. "Anyway, enough of my enjoyment. Naruto, this is a sword of the new age that requires an unnatural level of power and balance to wield. I made sure you had the speed to support it because of those amazing training sessions. Last but not least, I'm excited to see what you can accomplish. I'm excited to see what you come up with, Naruto, and I'll see you soon because we are now equals and true users of the sword rather than master and pupil." Despite being shocked by this, Naruto grinned broadly because she at least saw him as an equal. With a grin that Naruto knew was a joke, Anko muttered, "You-chan, I will be getting you back for this later." Anko told Naruto and Tama, "Now henge so the village doesn't go into an uproar." They looked cute and followed instructions, but they still couldn't wait to become ninjas so they wouldn't have to follow the villagers' rules. Anko shouted at them, "Now get going, you're almost late." As he made the ram sign and vanished in a whirlpool of red and blue chakra, Naruto said to Tama and Tayuya, "Got it in. Chan, see you later. Girls, let's show them what we can really do." She shouted, "Naru, wait for Tama," and followed suit, entering a column of blazing blue flames. As she vanished in a whirl of musical notes, Tayuya screamed angrily, "You shitheads, don't leave me behind." With a gleeful laugh, Anko cracked her knuckles and said, "Hee, now to get this place ready for tonight." The Academy Shino said monotonely, "I wonder where Naruto, Tama, and Tayuya are." Since Naruto was his best friend, Hinata could see that he was a little saddened by this. Hinata tried to reassure him, saying, "Don't worry Shino-kun, he will be here soon. They would never miss this day for the world." Kiba told his friend, "Yeah, don't worry, Buggy, he will be here soon enough," and Akamaru nodded in agreement. With an eat shit grin, Sasuke remarked, "I bet that the Dobi was just scared and is dragging the other 2 down with him." As Naruto emerged in front of the class, his red and blue chakras swirling around him, he remarked, "Now who says I'm scared, Teme?" Everyone was taken aback by Naruto's drastic transformation and his entrance. A coelom of blue flames and swirling musical notes appeared on either side of him simultaneously, without a second's delay. "I win," is uttered simultaneously by Tama and Tayuya. Tama told her, "No, I won, declared Tayuya. Tama grabbed one of Naruto's arms and said, "Naru, tell her that I won." Tayuya grabbed the other arm and said, "Naruto, you know I won, so just tell her." Using the famous puppy dog eyes, Tama said, "Naru." "Naruto." Tayuya said, her puppy dog eyes returning to him. It was painful for Naruto to be torn between the two. No, it hurt. They were trying to convince him that the other side had won by using him as a tug-of-war rope once more. Naruto tried to regain his arms and told them, "You both got here at the same time." When he said that, they both stopped, but Tayuya's smile was enormous. As she pulled Naruto away from a startled Tama and dragged him upstairs to their seats, she exclaimed joyfully, "Then that means I won because I left later." Taking Tama by the hand, Naru dragged her with them. Tayuya smiles and tells him, "It's better than Naruto because I won. Now you have to do something that I tell you later." Startled to find himself in this situation, Naruto questioned, "Wait, why, what did I do?" As they wait for class to begin, she clings to his shoulder and responds, "Because you are the only one that has anything of value." The entire class, meanwhile, was in a state of shock and amazement at their ability as they conversed with each other. As they watched them, everyone thought in disbelief, how strong are they really? A few minutes later, Iruka and Mizuki entered the room with stacks of papers in their hands. He smiled and said, "Okay kids, good for you all to be on time. It's time to take the written test." With the exception of Sakura, who was thrilled about it, the entire class slammed their heads against the tables. Test time skip. They burn my eyes. Everyone exhaled deeply in relief when they finished, knowing that the torture was finished. Iruka said as he went outside, "All right, now to the test's throwing portion and then, finally, the sparring will be after." They all stood in the center of the space, with the class right behind them. Civilians received a score of 6.7. Ino and Sakura received a 7 out of 10. Hinata scored 8 out of 10. Shikamaru and Choji received a 7 out of 10. Kiba received a score of 6. Shino received a score of 9. Sasuke's fangirls went crazy when he went up and received a perfect score. Consequently, Naruto and Tama's sensitive ears caused them to wince in agony. When Naruto noticed sparks flying between Tama and Tayuya, he became perplexed. They received a perfect score. Iruka said, "All right, it's Naruto's turn at last." After removing Tama and Tayuya from him, Naruto nodded and got to his feet. Both of them kissed him quickly on the cheek. "For luck," they both muttered simultaneously. Naruto just nodded, blushing profusely at what had happened. He stood up and picked them all up at once. He was shouted at by Tayuya, "Remember no restraints." He pushed chakra into his eyes to help him focus, but it caused his eyes to glow a little blue. Naruto nodded at him. He shocked everyone by putting his arms in an X and then unleashing all of the shrunken at once. They impaled themselves in every target, including the kidney, heart, neck, and head. Iruka dropped his clipboard in shock. Mizuki fainted, and the class was too stunned to speak or act. Tama and Tayuya were congratulating Naruto when he simply walked back to them, and awarding him extra points for the responses his performance elicited. Sasuke shouted, "Dobi, you cheated." His loyal fanbase overcame their surprise and shouted their agreement. Naruto smiled, enjoying the fact that he was making the Teme angry, and asked him, "How did I cheat?" "I saw you put chakra into your eyes, giving you an advantage. You're just supposed to throw them," he said. Naruto asked him directly, "Okay, Iruka, did you ever say that we were not allowed to put chakra into our eyes to help us focus?" He nodded his head no after grabbing his clipboard. "I never said that you couldn't. That is something that everyone does in a fight to help them be more accurate," he continued. The others stomped off to the next sparring area, furious that Naruto was correct. To start, Naruto thought it was sad that Sakura and Ino ended up tying. Shikamaru and Choji went up, but as soon as the match began, Shikamaru gave up, allowing Choji to win. Because Kiba is a close range specialist and Shino is a mid-ranger, Kiba defeated Shino in their fight. Tayuya and Tama fought one of the final battles. Naruto was initially concerned that the two would fight, but as soon as it began, he became utterly terrified. He was aware that Tama had the upper hand because she was more adept at close quarters combat due to her specialization in close range ninjutsu. Although Tayuya was a long-range genjutsu practitioner, Enko also taught her how to fight hand-to, hand at close range. When she spoke to her while they were sleeping, Tama employed a fighting technique that her mother had taught her. In a technique known as burning fox, she surrounds herself with fire chakra and attempts to lightly strike her targets in order to burn them. Alternatively, she applies a lot of chakra to a nail tip, which allows her to cut it with fire chakra, leaving burning claw marks. Tayuya, on the other hand, learned an unusual fighting style for Guy after Anko taught him the Habi style. By the way, she was still having nightmares about that. The tempo style was the name given to it. She enjoyed it because it allowed her to use her love of music to set the fight's tempo and control the opponent's movements, giving the impression that it's a dance. In order to make her opponent's moves easy to follow and counter, she will hum the song and use her siren-like abilities to hypnotize them into going into tempo. Tayuya lost by ring out after Tama took a hit that sent her out of the stadium during the 10-minute bout. She only did this because she was aware of Tayuya's fighting style and was shielding her ears from Tayuya's hypnotization the entire time. "Alright, final fight will be between Naruto and Sasuke," Iruka replied. After giving his sword to Tama to hold, Naruto approached the arena, where Sasuke was waiting for him. He was grinning as he turned to face Naruto, believing that he had won easily. As he leapt back out of the arena, Iruka said, "Okay, let's get started." With his arms raised in a defensive position, Naruto leaned back in his stance. He picked up the style from Anko and a friend of his. Because it was a counter style that would enable him to attack after an attack, it was named Devil Trigger. It enabled him to suddenly acquire a huge chakra spike into a point where he attacks, dealing his target a devastating blow. Although he was aware that Sasuke also employed a counter-style that required the Sharingan to use successfully, the style was still potent. He therefore made the wise decision to wait for him to become agitated and attack him. Nothing happened for a full minute, but Naruto felt that Sasuke was growing impatient. He was waiting motionless for Naruto to approach him while clenching his teeth. In an attempt to quicken the pace, Naruto made a mocking bow to him. When he said, "Should we dance?" with a smile, Sasuke charged at him in rage. When he went for a straight punch, Naruto was waiting for him and appeared to disappear from view. Ino shouted, "Sasuke-kun above you." He glanced up just in time to see Naruto descend from his right, his chakra in a blade. Like shape. Naruto screams, "Split," as he falls on Sasuke. He came down on top of him, but he was able to avoid him because Ino had warned him. He didn't anticipate the shockwave that sent him hurtling to the arena's edge when he barrel rolled to the right. Naruto was already attacking him again when he recovered. Streak Naruto screamed as he made a blindingly fast lunge at Sasuke. The chakra blade was still extended on his arm, but he abruptly turned his hand sideways, backhanding Sasuke straight into a tree. As a last insult, Naruto began clapping. Naruto exclaimed, "Wonderful performance," as he left the arena and approached Kyuubi and Tama, who were giggling uncontrollably at how much he had irritated Sasuke. They were hugging him tightly in addition to the fact that he did a fantastic job. He returned his sword to his back after Tama handed it to him. They awaited Iruka's announcement that Naruto had won. Iruka shouted, "Naruto won," with a smile on his face, delighted for Naruto. Sakura, irritated that Naruto had cheated to defeat her Sasuke-kun, yelled, "But sensei, he used jutsu." "You said no, just you." "I didn't use a jutsu, that was my fighting style. It allows me bursts of chakra and that is all I did with my kenjutsu abilities tied in with them," said Naruto. "I never said there was no chakra allowed to be used in the fight, just that you were not allowed to use jutsu," Iruka clarified for her. She began to rant that Naruto couldn't defeat her Sasuke-kun, but he stopped paying attention. "Alright, I will be giving out the grades teams and everything tomorrow, so see you all tomorrow," Iruka told us. After nodding, we all departed. Anko said she prepared a special dinner for them because they passed, so Naruto, Tama, and Kyuubi all ran home. Upon arriving at the house, they discovered that every light was off. Kyuubi remarked, "I thought Anko was here." Naruto responded to her by opening the door and saying, "Same here, Taiyu-chan." They entered the house and made their way to the living room. Suddenly, Anko yelled, "Surprise!" as she somehow made her way through the floor and threw the group to the ground. The unexpected weight and force she applied caused everyone to topple over poor Naruto. As she continued to crush them, Anko joyfully said, "Congratulations, Gakis. You did great." Although they were all thrilled for her and thrilled that they were going to die, they were also feeling crushed and preferred breathing a little bit more than a joyful Anko. They were able to get her to relax. To his annoyance, Tama and Kyuubi were glomping Naruto's tails, but he liked to breathe and knew it was either his neck or his tails. Anko snaps her fingers and a banner drops from the ceiling, accompanied by streamers and confetti flying in all directions. "Now let's get this party started," it said, Konoha Anko's sexy snake mistress. Proud of her Gakis, as evidenced by a picture of a chibi representation of each one that she tackled in a similar way to how she did it a little earlier. At this point, everyone in the group starts to laugh and realizes that it's just her nature. As she brings out food for everyone, she begins to laugh with them. As usual, they all take their seats at the table and begin eating together. Stories of the day's events are occasionally shared, along with a random morsel of food. The fact that Naruto kicked Sasuke's ass during the spar made Anko laugh. She tells Naruto, "You would undoubtedly make Nero proud." Naruto smiled sadly as he nodded. Anko whispered to him, "He was given a long-term mission, but you know that he will return someday, Naruto." "I know and I am happy that he will be back after the mission, but it's boring without him here," she responds to Naruto. She smiles and tells him, "I know, but if he wants to live here permanently, he had to go and bring his Kiri back with him." Naruto nodded and grinned at that. Anko pulled a cake out of thin air and said, "All right, now for the Peace Day resistance." When they discovered what kind of cake it was, everyone's eyes grew to the size of dinner plates. As everyone applauded, Kyuubi let out a joyful, "Cookie cake," scream. As she distributed slices to everyone, Anko grinned broadly and said, I know, I'm awesome." The group began eating contentedly, appreciating what Anko had done for them. They partied hard, and it was about 11 when they were finished. As she went next door, Anko told them, "Okay, go be so you can get your teams tomorrow." After dressing, they retired to their beds. "So, are we going to bed together?" Tama asked them after they had settled in. Naruto told her, of course, Tama-chan, there can't be another way. Kyuubi smiled and said to her, yeah, we are together and always will be. As she drifts off to sleep, Tama murmurs, you're right, let's go and be together forever. Naruto was observing the two as Kyuubi followed her closely. As Naruto gazed sorrowfully at the two sleeping girls, he thought, I hope so, Tama, but I can't ever choose between you two. What do I do? For him, the two girls were everything. Academy the following day, everyone had their headbands on and was seated as usual. Naruto wears his on his head, while Tama and Kyuubi wear theirs around their necks. They're all dressed in black. Iruka stated, I will now be revealing the team roster to you. Now first was said to each of the other pupils. Team 7 is Sasuke, Sakura, and Sai sensei is Kakashi. Ear-shattering scream from the Banshee. Team 8 is Ino, Shikamaru, and Choji sensei is Asuma. Team 9 is Hinata, Kiba, and Shino sensei is Kurenai. Finally Team 11 is Naruto, Kyuubi and Tama sensei is Anko. My condolences, he said. A moment later, Tama and Kyuubi, pleased to be on the same team, tackle Naruto and give him a cheek kiss. They let go of each other just in time for an intriguing event to occur. Two blurs crashed through two of the windows. One featured Anko flinging a banner with the words, around the front of the room. Team Badass's sexy Anko Junin is here. The other girl had long black, dark blue hair that was tied in a ponytail and adorned with a pink bow. She was wearing a pink kimono with red trim. She had perfect skin, a body that many would kill for, and purple eyes. She also carried a katana with a red ribbon tied to it and a red grip. Her white cat ears on top of her head and cattail were what truly drew everyone's attention. Her words were, Master, I found you, as she threw Naruto to the ground while squeezing him. When they heard that, everyone had the same thought. What? As they watched the pretty girl continue to embrace Naruto, the class was still in disbelief. When the girl did that to their Naruto, Tama and Kyuubi were furious. As the girl continued to nuzzle up to him and purr, Naruto remained stunned by what had just transpired. She muttered joyfully, I finally found you, Master, as her grip made it clear that she would not be releasing her hold anytime soon. As Tama and Kyuubi begin their unsuccessful attempt to rip the girl away from Naruto, they yell, get off of Naruto. In the end, they threw them both out the window after lifting Naruto with her. As they rush out after them, they yell, Naruto, Naru, are you okay? Anko, who was not far behind, thought that this was getting interesting rather quickly. She was met with the intriguing sight of Naruto and the catgirl still on the ground, with Tama and Kyuubi still attempting to rip her from him when she went outside. Get away from him, no, we disclosed, no, quit being a baby. I'm not indeed, you are no, I'm not, go away. Never, Naru, get her off, Naruto, I refuse to let go. Indeed, you will. No, I won't. Enouph Naruto shouted as he shoved the girl, Tama, and Kyuubi away from him. Naruto said, now everyone sit, and for some reason, everyone did as he said, even Anko. Naruto gestured to the catgirl and said, now who are you? She bowed to Naruto and said, I apologize for not introducing myself earlier, Master. My name is Himari Noihara. Naruto said, all right, now, why are you here, Himari? I am to serve the next master of the Uzumaki and Namikaze family. And you are him. My family has been looking for you for the past 15 years, she said as she continued to bow. Naruto asked her, perplexed, I am an Uzumaki, but what do you mean Namikaze? They are a powerful family that have a bloodline called Fairy Light that awakens around the age of 16 inches, she says. Now that he was aware of his bloodline, Naruto wanted to know if this girl was telling the truth. Naruto questioned her, how do you know that I am this person you are looking for? Because of your smell, and my family is naturally drawn to you, she said. Unable to fully comprehend this, he asked her, why would you be? She pointed to his fellow students who were watching and listening with interest as she said, it might be better to explain this in private and away from prying eyes. He approached them and remarked, nice idea. Knowing what he was doing, Anko, Tama, and Kyuubi grabbed his arm. Taking Himari by the shoulder, he sushioned them all out of the academy and headed to his house. The living room of Naruto with Tama and Kyuubi clutching both of his arms, the group sat on the couch and gave the newcomer a sour look. She remained unfazed by it and continued to observe them while sitting atop the coffee table. Anko was bored, so she made the decision to go get something to eat. Naruto looked at her bewilderedly and said, all right, Himari, why are you here, and who are you? She smiled and said to him, I am here to serve you, master. That's all there is to it. As for who I am, You already know that. Naruto blushed a little because he thought her smile was cute, but that was for another moment. Alright, let me rephrase what I said. I mean, why am I considered your master, and what are you exactly? She responded. Well, you see, the Uzumaki clan has an ability to suppress demons with an ability called Light Chain, and you have this power as well. The Namikaze clan has the fairy light ability that I told you of before. My clan has been sworn into servitude to both clans for what your father did for our clan, she said. He questioned her, and who is your clan exactly? She jumped at him and declared, we are a clan of demons like your two friends but of a different species. As he prepared to brace himself, she was engulfed in smoke, followed a moment later by a small white cat. She curled up on his lap and purred joyfully as he caught her. She looked up at him and said, we are also very cute cats, but we are your guardians, that is what we promised your father. Naruto asked, bewildered, who is my father and what do you mean? She also cocked her head sideways in confusion. You were not told of who your parents were. The Hokage was supposed to tell you when you were 10. She responded in disbelief. This caused everyone's eyes to widen. Naruto was shocked to think, Gigi is keeping something from me. Tayuya and Tama had similar ideas. She reverted to her human form and said, yes, wait, I must see something. Fortunately for Naruto, despite her somewhat loose clothing, she was still wearing it. There was a faint white light emanating from the connection when she touched her head against his. Himari was searching his recollections to see if he had ever heard of his parents. Additionally, she couldn't understand why they were in a run-down apartment when he ought to be residing in the estate she had seen as a kitten. Her expectations were completely different from what she actually saw. She witnessed all of his abuse, beatings, and icy looks. How he lost everything he ever owned to muggers while living on the streets. She began to tremble as Naruto watched, her face contorting in agony and tears streaming from her eyes. As the light went out, Himari was crying in a traditional way and giving Naruto a hug that was almost too tight. Everyone was perplexed by this, but Naruto knew from personal experience that she needed consolation, so he began to hold her and whisper kind words into her ear. She apologized repeatedly in hushed tones. She was able to relax after a few minutes, and she sniffled while staring at him with puffy red eyes. I'm so sorry, we should have come before now, we thought that you were protected. He swore on his headband that you would be fine. She broke down. Naruto's eyes widened in realization after initially being perplexed by this. As he held the poor cat girl in his arms, he thought, she searched through my memories, but what does she mean promising on a headband? Knowing what that meant, Anko asked, Himari, who were you talking about who wore on their headband? Ninjas were supposed to swear on their headband as if they were swearing on their pride and life. If they broke it, they would be executed. Your Hokage promised my clan on his headband that he would be treated as the hero he was supposed to. But right after he did not visit the Whirlpool country like he was supposed to. When we tried to find him, we were stopped at every turn to come here. Because of me being able to look like a full human, I was able to get through, but it took me time to find him because I never met him before, she said. Naruto questioned her, why was I supposed to be seen as a hero? Because of the Kyuubi's rampage, the village was attacked. At the time, your people only saw it as a monster. You were holding it at bay inside of yourself, making you a prison to it. For that and condemning your life to being its prison and protecting them every minute of your life, she told him. Since they were aware of Kyuubi and her occasional conversations with them, the group was a little perplexed by this. Although she was a grump, she wasn't a bad person. On the contrary, she was incredibly helpful and kind compared to other people in the village. Anko smirked as he looked at Himai and remarked, I see, that would explain some things and a suspicion that I have been having since I met Naru. Naruto started to ask another question, but Anko grabbed his attention by giving him a back hug. Anyway, you guys are going to have to get things together for tomorrow, we got things to do, Anko told them. They all nodded despite their perplexed looks at her. In order to get the cat girl's attention, she added, and Himari. While in the village, stay in your full human form or that cat form. The village is not kind like it should, and Naru won't want you to get harmed when you have been kind to him. Though I would watch out for his girlfriends, they just might kill you for trying anything with him, she joked. The group was shocked when they looked at her, but they were even more shocked when they saw that she was gone. Himari questioned in disbelief, who? What? Where? How did she do that? At Anko's antics, the other three members of the group simply sighed. Tayuya pointed to one of the two rooms and said, come on Himari, we're going to bed. Now you can use this room. She asked, why this one? As she peered inside and noticed that, aside from the overabundance of fox decorations, the bedroom was simple. I mean, the pillows were stuffed animals, wallpaper, curtains, blankets, foxes, and everything. According to Tama, because that's my room. As she entered the room, She was wearing pajamas with a small fox on her shirt a moment later, and Himari started to perspire. As she gazed at the girl, she thought, she has a rather bad obsession with foxes. She noticed that Kyuubi was dressed differently as well, and she couldn't tell when she had changed. She questioned the group, wait, it's only 4. Don't you think it's a little early to sleep? No, not really, we aren't going to sleep, we are going to be training. We won't be sleeping until about 10, she replied to Naruto. She inquired inquisitively, what do you mean? Well, the thing is that every Monday and Friday we train with Tama's mother Kyuubi. Naruto informs her. At this, Himari's eyes widened, not believing they could pull this off. If you want you can train with us, but you are turning into that cat form, understand you haven't known us long enough to be able to cuddle with our Naru, Tama said in a menacing voice. With the same menacing tone, Kyuubi said, don't try to do anything or it will end badly, understand girl. Himari grinned and thought, those two are really protective of him. They're good people who can help me protect him. When the group arrived at Naruto's bed, Himari transformed into a cat as instructed. She was at ease as she lay on Naruto's chest, feeling warm, and curled up on top of him. The other two settled into their typical positions, cuddling up to his shoulders on either side of him. Naruto said, ready, to them. He closed his eyes as the 3 nodded. Soon after, the others followed suit. They found themselves in a sort of meadow with a big log cabin beside a waterfall. There was a woman on the front porch who was considered a goddess by the majority of people in their village. She is a demon lord, which is funny. Her eyes were deep crimson, and her hair was long and red. She had D-cup breasts and an hourglass figure. It appeared that she was in her early 30s. Her 2 red tails on top of her head and her 9 crimson tails waving languidly behind her were the only clues that this was more than just a pretty woman. She was dressed in a white kimono with a fox design on it. She noticed them while she was enjoying a cup of tea. With her tails wrapped around Kyuubi, she embraced Naruto and Tama. While rubbing her cheeks against Tama's and Naruto's, she joyfully asks, kids, how are you? It's been a while. Today, Naruto wanted space after being tackled by too many girls. Tama was happy to see her mother and nuzzling her at the same time. With a gleam of evil in her eye, she said, so you're here for training, right? Himari and the group both nodded. The sword on her hip caught Kyuubi's attention. Well, you're new and smell like a cat, so you finally come to help Naru. I would beat the hell out of you if you didn't explain to Naru why he was left alone, she told her. Himari was taken aback by this and exhaled with relief that she was safe, for the time being. As she began instructing them, Kyuubi remarked, anyway, time for the torch, I mean training. Naruto was practicing his hand technique. Kyuubi was aware of the new siren genjutsu that Kyuubi was learning. Tama was learning how to use the Biju bomb in the same style as her mother. Since Himari wasn't very good with swords, Kyuubi wasn't sure how to handle her, so she felt a little excluded. When Kyuubi sparred with Naruto a few hours later, she was shocked to find that they were on an equal footing. Kyuubi was not shocked by Naruto's somewhat brazen and assertive demeanor, given his teacher. Himari's cat-like reflexes, speed, and flexibility were key components of her style. Both of them had a sword at the other's neck as they battled to a draw. This surprised Himari because she was the third best swordswoman in her people, behind her mother, who was also their clan leader. She exclaimed in surprise, Master, you are very powerful. Naruto laughed at her perplexity and said, thanks Himari, now like you were thinking earlier we sleep. Kyuubi said, come on already, kitty, it's time to go, as she somehow materialized behind Naruto. When Naruto saw this, he thought, god damn it, she's learning from Enko. Tama told her, we have a mission tomorrow, and you will be added to our team. She nodded to them despite blinking a few times. In the beginning, Kyuubi was explaining to her how things worked in the village while the others were practicing, so she was beginning to get the gist. All right, she said, licking Naruto's cheek, and I will do my best to serve you, master. The other girls were glaring at her for doing that to their Naruto, but he was shocked by this. Kyuubi shouted at them, get out and go to bed, you're still here. Fearing Naruto's wrath, they all fled her mindscape in a panic. After a month, the graduating year's top team was Team 11. Naruto gave us shadow clones the idea, and as a result, they have finished nearly 50 D-rank missions. Enko wanted to show them some new things they were learning at the training ground after they completed 2 C-rank missions. Himari made close friends with Tama and Kyuubi during the month. She believes Enko does too, but she isn't positive yet. Himari was now Naruto Uzumaki's bodyguard. After essentially forcing the man to urinate with the well-known devil smile, she managed to persuade the Hokage to permit it. It also didn't hurt to have some blackmail on him. She is Naruto's official bodyguard and was granted Chunin status. When she first entered the room, Sasuke remembered her and realized how strong she was. His desire for her increased after he was immediately labeled a Chunin. He attempted to persuade the council to give her to him, but Naruto stopped them with a straightforward but effective threat. He was aware of a way to release Kyuubi without taking his own life, and repaying him would wipe out the entire village. They were going to plot his murder and were perspiring like pigs. Thanks to his keen hearing, he was able to overhear and warn them that the Kyuubi would be released without question and indefinitely if they grew weary. He saw that fewer people were attempting to hurt him and his loved ones after that. In a written document, Himari also forced the Hokage to swear with blood that Naruto would reveal his true identity to the village once he became a Chunin. If he didn't, Naruto and the people he decided to bring with him were allowed to leave the village without being marked as missing nin. At last, he would receive half of the village's earnings. He didn't intend to oppose it because he knew that this would most likely ruin the village and he would be known as the one who did it. Naruto was to be with both Tama and Tayuya, according to their plan. Understanding Naruto's feelings, they began to relinquish their rivalry. It wasn't difficult, particularly when he asked your mother for advice after she shared a conscience with him. Anko shouted to the group, "Okay, we're done here." After giving her a nod, they all began to make their way back home. Naruto grinned like a fox and told them, "That was fun, girls. We really did awesome today." They all joined in his smiles and giggles. They're proud of what they managed to do today. Himari pondered what Tama and Tayuya were going to do after noticing a sparkle in their eyes. Tama told Naruto, "We have to ask you a question when we get home." Naruto nodded to her despite blinking a few times in bewilderment. With a shout of, "Great, let's hurry home," Tayuya took hold of their arms and began to run away. Himari was running closely behind them, laughing at what they were doing. When they arrived at their house, Tama and Tayuya immediately dragged Naruto into the bedroom. Himari nodded in response to their warning to keep away and went into the kitchen to fetch some milk. Within Naruto's chamber, Tama stood in front of Naruto and said, "All right, Naruto, we need you to answer our question." Tayuya told him straight out, "Who do you like more?" The statement caused Naruto's eyes to widen, and he started to get anxious. Although he didn't prefer one to the other, the look in their eyes told him he had to respond. Tama approached him a little more and said, "Naru, tell us, who do you like more, me or Taiyu-chan?" "Who is it, Tama or Naruto?" Tayuya inquired. Although she disliked putting Naruto under such pressure, they required a direct response from him. Naruto held his head up and said, I don't like either one of you more than the other." The two most significant individuals in his life were forcing him to make a decision, which left him feeling incredibly conflicted and unsure of what to do. With a cheerful smile, Tama asked him, "So you're saying that we are both on par with you?" Tayuya questioned, "That you can't have one of us without the other." Naruto nodded and clenched his eyes shut. He was terrified that they would now despise him, both of them. Naruto pondered, "Why can't we all be together like always? We promised that, didn't we?" As they turned back to Naruto, he was unaware that Tama and Tayuya were smiling at each other. They both jumped at Naruto together, knocking him to the bed as if they had counted down. Naruto stared at them, now bewildered. They stated in an unsent message, "We wanted to hear you say that Naruto, but we knew that." "You're not angry?" Naruto said tremblingly. Tama told him, "No, Naru, we're not angry. We love you too much to ignore this." "She is right, Naruto, you mean too much to us, plus in case you forgot, you're the last of a clan with a bloodline according to Himari. You will be put into the CRA anyway," Tayuya told him. Tayuya remarked, "But we approve of who is with you, understood?" Naruto gave her a nod. At this, they grinned and leaned in his direction. After saying, "Good," as a group, they arrived at their destination, Naruto's lips. For a few seconds, they shared a three-way kiss. Being loved and accepted by one another put all three of them in a state of bliss. Tama moved to her place on his chest and said, "Now let's get some sleep, we have a lot of explaining and things to do tomorrow." As she clung to his arm as usual and kissed his neck, she said, "She's right, Naruto, good night." Naruto was grinning broadly, grateful for their presence, both now and in the future. When the sun broke through his curtains and fell directly into Naruto's eyes, he was awakened. He used his free arm to rub the sleep from his eyes and blinked. As he stretched slightly to rouse himself, he thought, "Damn you, son, in every way known to man." He noticed that Tama and Tayuya were still asleep and that the sun was completely out of their eyes. He grinned broadly at the two still sleeping on him and muttered, "So cute, we're all together still." Since it was their off day and they could spend the entire day relaxing in the house if they so desired, he allowed them to go to sleep. Naruto saw Himari sleeping on top of him while she was in her feline form. He petted her tenderly while she slept because he thought she was adorable when she did this. He made Kyuubi and Tama smile while they slept by softly stroking their tails. After doing this for a short while, he noticed Anko enter the room covertly wearing her unique nightgown, which was actually her as she swayed into the room, clutching a pillow to her stomach, wearing only her bra and underwear. However, Naruto could see that she was sleepwalking once more from the look in her eyes. She occasionally entered his room or the living room and simply slept there. She slipped past Himari, Tama, and Kyuubi and was lying on top of him, using his other arm as a pillow while continuing to squeeze her own arm until it was dead. As he closed his eyes to sleep again, he thought to himself, I can't get up at this pace. Oh well, it's a good day to just relax. Something he would later come to regret. Dream like he usually did, Naruto was strolling through the village with Kyuubi and Tama holding his hand while they joyfully laughed as they passed by. The villagers glared at them in an attempt to make them feel bad, but the three of them were able to ignore it with ease when they were together. A Chunin then decided that humiliating the demon in front of his two girls would be amusing. He was about to kick him when he dropped a flash bomb in front of them, but Naruto quickly saw it and kicked it back. He screamed in agony as it exploded in his face. In a split second, he released Tama's hand and used the flat of his blade to slit the man's legs, tripping him. Then, he had the blade on his back and was holding Tama's hand again. A villager shouted, "You demon, you attacked a shinobi," as he charged. However, when Tama and Kyuubi gave him a glare and released their murderous intent, he stopped. Naruto simply sighed because this was a daily occurrence, but then something occurred. Swords drawn, Anbu descended and surrounded them. They brandished their swords at the group, seemingly daring them to attempt to flee, and declared, "You are all arrested for attacking a fellow shinobi. What he tried to hurt us first with the flash bomb and I trip him for what he did. How are we being punished?" Naruto began to scream. In a monotone, he responded, "Because your actions harmed him, his would not have." "Are you fucking kidding me, you cocksucker? These two's eyes are like a nocturnal animal's. If they get a flash like that it could blind them for a week. You're saying that him falling on his ass is going to affect his ninja career?" Kyuubi barked at him. Just as Naruto was about to tell Kyuubi not to curse, time seemed to slow down behind her, and Anbu stabbed her in the heart with his sword. The leader stated in a monotone that assaulting an Anbu is punishable by death. Naruto screamed, "Tayuya!" and sprang for the redhead that was falling. Dream outside the girls looked up to see what was wrong after sensing Naruto moving. They noticed that he was whimpering in his sleep and that tears were streaming down his cheeks. Whispering, "No, Kyuubi, get away." Kyuubi was hurt by the words and her eyes widened at this. She thought sorrowfully, "Get away from him. Did I do something to him?" However, Anko was aware that something was wrong. Unless he needed to use the restroom or something, Naruto would never tell any of them to leave, especially Kyuubi. Leaning up, she began to shake him. "Naru, wake up now. It's only a dream," she tells him while giving him a hard shake. Naruto awoke with a start, gasping for air and looking around him frantically. He was lying on the bed in his room. Not in the village. When he saw that Kyuubi had no blood on her shirt, he immediately sprang at her and held her. This confused her, and the tightness of his grip made her wince a little in pain. Then she heard him sniffle and felt him shiver. He cried, "Why? You're okay, no her. Tn.not d.ed," while he held her. Now that she understood what he meant, her eyes widened. He wanted people away from her, not that he wanted her gone. She was saddened by his mental state but also blushed when she realized how protective he was of her. He is unable to escape the village and what they did to him, not even in his dreams with them. She released his hold on her arms and held him tenderly while she began to hum a calming tune to help him relax. Anko, Tama, and Himari grinned as they observed this unfold. Kyuubi was known throughout the village as the foul-mouthed bitch who, if you look at her the wrong way, can and will take away what you value most. However, she was really kind and considerate to Naruto. While she was still humming and rocking Naruto, she noticed that they were observing her and gave them a glare that said, "Tell anyone I did this and I will make your life hell." All they could do was nod to her and laugh at that. She returned to Naruto, who was starting to calm down, and grinned at them, pleased that they understood. As she watched Naruto try to calm down, Anko thought angrily, "How dare they do this to such a good-hearted guy? I'm going to feed them to my snakes when I find out who did this to my Naru." As she approached Naruto and gave him a back hug, Tama thought angrily, "How dare they do this to my Naru? If this continues, my mother and I will burn this place to the ground one day." He initially froze, unsure of who it was, but as soon as he heard Tama purring behind him, he relaxed. Sitting on Anko's lap, Himari gazed at the scene and thought, I am so sorry, master. We should have tried harder to get to you. I swear on my life, I will protect you. After a while, Naruto relaxed, but he wouldn't let go of Kyuubi. Not wanting to play the pervert card, she told him, Naruto, if you don't let me go, you're going to have to take a shower with me. However, he needed to relax without her. She thought he was thinking about it for a minute, but he held her hand instead of hugging her. Oh. Okay Taiyu. Chan, he said reluctantly, letting her go before getting up to prepare food for everyone. Knowing that Naruto needed to do something to calm himself, Anko smiled at her while teasing, that was not nice Kyuubi. Chan. Kyuubi said angrily, oh shut it Anko, I'm going to take a shower, as she dressed and headed to the restroom. Anko, Tama, and Himari burst out laughing hysterically as she shut the door. As she started to relax, Anko remarked, she might try to deny it but she enjoyed that, a lot. True, but I can't wait for later, I want Naru to snuggle with me like that too. Tama murmured. He is 7 years younger than you, so he wouldn't think of you that way, would he? Anko agreed, wanting him to do that to her. As she considered that, Himari transformed into her human form, and she and Tama gathered their belongings, showered, and got ready for the day. While preparing the group's meal, Naruto was occupied in the kitchen. He chose to treat them to some syrup and flavored pancakes. Pancakes with dango flavor for Anko, of course. Tama got bacon. Flavored. We're running low on meat, so I should get some more. I believe I should give Kyuubi a little extra cookie flavor. And an extra large glass of milk with fish flavored for Himari. When he was done preparing food for everyone, he hummed, okay and I guess some strawberry for me. He heard the girls begin to emerge in their regular attire as the bathroom door opened. Hello girls, I got the food ready. Anko, can you get everything finished while I take a shower quickly? Naruto said to her. She gave him a sly smile and nodded, pleased that he was now acting normally. As he left to take a shower and change, they gave each other a high five. When he emerged a few minutes later, his hair was flatter than usual and he was wearing his regular clothes, with the exception that he had his sword in his hand and was leaning it against the house's door. Naruto made a joke with them, so we eating or what? They all sat down to eat after grinning at his joke. They enjoyed their various pancakes while eating in quiet harmony. Following their meal, they all promptly cleaned up and discussed their plans for the day. Naruto asked them, so, what do you think we should do? When the door rang, everyone in the group was awake and trying to think of something to do. When Himari went to retrieve it, an Anbu was standing there when she opened the door. On the defensive, she asks, can we help you? Hearing her tone of voice toward the individual, Naruto and the others turn to face the door. They become interested when they see the Anbu. He left after saying, the Hokage wants to see you in his office in 20 minutes. Naruto straps his sword to his back and leaves the room, saying to the girls, okay, you heard him, Gigi needs us for something, and it must be urgent, so let's get a skip in our step. The others follow him after nodding and gathering their necessities. After arriving at the office a short while later, they noticed the elder Hokage wearing a serious expression and crossing his fingers in front of his face. It was serious ninja business when they realized that this was no social visit. Knowing that she should now be serious, Anko asks professionally, Hokage Sama, what do you need of us? I just got word from Kakashi's team, it seems that their mission isn't going so well. His team is going against regulation and going along with the mission anyway when Zabuza showed up. They made it to the client's house safely, but we need you to back them up. Your team is strong enough for what is needed, so be careful and try to get everyone back alive, he told them. Everyone in the room said hello before heading back to the house to gather their travel necessities. The information they required was thrown to Anko by the Hokage, who took it and started reading it on the way home. Alright, what we need is 2 weeks worth of supplies just in case and sleeping material, ordered by Anko. After giving her a nod, we gathered our belongings and hurried to our rooms to retrieve our necessities. In a few minutes, we'll be back outside with everything we needed and reunited at the front door. Naruto tells her, everything is ready, and Chan. She tells him gravely, okay, and keep in mind that we're in mission mode until we reach the client's house, Naruto. Naruto tells her, right Anko. Sensei, and the group hastily leaves. In a matter of seconds, they were leaving the gate and heading to the Land of Waves for the next mission. Anko described the entire mission they were embarking on along the way. They had to defend their client from a man named Gato who was pursuing him. On this mission, there were other ninjas, but mostly thugs. Anko stated that since Zabuza would be the main obstacle, Naruto and Himari would battle him if necessary, with Kyuubi serving as backup. Anko and Tama then fought together against any other ninjas before going to support Naruto's group. They all agreed that Naruto and Himari were the best options because Zabuza was a swordsman. Anko gives her team a nod, and they all keep running until they reach their goal. After 5 hours, at Tanzo's residence, Tayuya heaved as she tried to catch her breath, finally made it. Damn, that sucked. Himari says, I understand what you mean, as she tries to open her kimono to breathe. Don't even try that, Naruto carried you in your cat form halfway here, Tayuya screamed. She retorted, and you played piggyback with him, what's your point? While being carried on Naruto's back, Anko asks them, will you both shut up? We're here, aren't we? So stop crying. Don't you hear Naruto complaining, do you? The words, can I please lie down, caused Naruto to gasp and almost faint. As she gave him a shoulder and assisted him in walking to the house, Tama said, sure you can, Naru. Come on, we're here. A woman's voice greeted them as their Anko was knocked. Who is it? She asks cautiously. She shouted through the door, name's Anko, me, and my team are Kakashi. Baka's backup. Over the door, Kakashi shouted, let them in, Tsunami, that's Anko. You hear the locks click, and when the door opens, you see a stunning woman who is at most in her early 30s, grinning warmly at them. Hello, sorry about that, but we are rather protective ever since my father came back with wounded ninja, she told them. She receives an understanding nod from the group before turning to face Naruto. She approached Tama and Naruto with a worried expression on her face and said, he looks exhausted. What happened? Did you have to fight more ninja on the way here? Himari, Tayuya, and Anko all laugh uneasily. That's kind of our fault, we all had him carry us during the time, and normally he can run for hours on end and only get a little tired, but carrying 100 plus thanks to us and the gear, it kind of took its toll on him, explained Anko. She did not include the 400 pounds he already weighed because of his training weights, but a civilian would assume he was divine based on that. As she ushers the group inside, she says, oh, I see. Come in. Upon entering, they discovered Kakashi reading his porn on the couch, much to the annoyance of all the women. Sakura fawned over Sasuke, telling him how amazing he was while he brooded in the corner. Then Sai was sketching in a book. Then Anko screams at him, Kakashi. Baka, what did I tell you about that book, and lunges for the damned book. Because he was still in need of healing and was being beaten to death by his own precious, Kakashi was unable to respond. The fact that someone was able to beat that bastard's head for reading that book in her home made Tsunami smile broadly. After showing Naruto and Tama their spare room, she had Tama lie Naruto down. Alright, I will be back later with some food. Are you going to stay with him? Tama responds. She merely nodded as she knelt beside Naruto, who was seated beside him. As he unwinds on the bed, Naruto says softly, Tama-chan, you don't have to stay here if you don't want to. She covered her ears with her hands and said, it's okay, Naru-kun. I enjoy being around you. Plus, it's too noisy downstairs for me. From downstairs, Anko yelled, I'll make you crap out your inner pervert if I have to. Tayuya yelled, there are kids here, you jackass, and then there were squealing sounds. After laughing at this, Naruto begins to cough. When he does, Tama is beside him, unexpectedly carrying a glass of water. She gives it to him and assists him in getting to his feet. Naruto accepted it, looking at Tama with gratitude as he drank the water, which helped him relax. After he stops coughing, he turns to face Tama. Thanks, Tama-chan. Let's head downstairs now. He smiles and extends his arm to her, who accepts it with a joyful nod and smiles before escorting Naruto down to the other people. When they arrive, they see a battered Kakashi, with Sai sketching a picture of him in a dejected mood, Sakura attempting to pull Sasuke from the wall, and Tayuya and Himari whistling naively in the background. Naruto said, girls, what happened? And both of them received tick marks for pointing at Sasuke, the creator. Himari angrily yelled and hissed, he tried to force me to be his mate. If anyone will be my mate, it's Naruto. Sama, she thought. Tayuya screamed angrily, seemingly spitting fire at Sasuke. He said I was worthy of being his wife and grabbed my ass. Except for his eye, which kept twitching in frustration, Naruto wasn't displaying it. Not to castrate Sasuke next opportunity, he thinks angrily. Anko walked back from a battered Kakashi who was twitching on the ground and said, anyway, we have a watch schedule for you. Tayuya and Tama are another group, and Naruto, you will be paired with Himari. Normally, Tama and Tayuya would be shouting in annoyance at this, but since they were kunoichi, they knew when to be serious and nodded when she said, Naruto, your group has the first watch. Anko gave him a savage smile and said, all right, Kakashi, we'll get everyone up for training tomorrow because knowing you, you taught them jack shit. Kakashi stopped twitching, and a drop of sweat appeared on his leg. He then started to laugh awkwardly. After letting out a sigh, Anko turns to face Naruto and says, "Scratch that, Naruto, your group is second. Kakashi, your team takes first watch." She approaches, closely followed by her team. As he put Sasuke and Sakura together while Sai was with him, Kakashi thought angrily, "That bitch, hurting me for no reason, I'll get you for this, Anko." He wanted to finish his book, so he gets up and assigns his team their shifts. Anko was lying on her stomach on a bed upstairs as Naruto massaged her back. They had made a deal when Naruto was 5 years old, and she had vowed to abstain from alcohol after a drunken mob beat him and brought him home. The issue was that she needed something to help her control her nerves. In order to replace her drinking, Naruto promised to massage her whenever she desired. "All right, let's make our sleeping plans. Naruto, I believe you should just share the room with us. Sakura and Sasuke are untrustworthy to me. Kakashi might be, but not those two." Additionally, Anko stated, "Sai should be fine, but to be honest, he freaks me out. It's bad when someone irritates Anko." They all said, "Hiei," and started rolling out their beds to sleep when Anko said, "Okay, then we should get some sleep now so we have the energy for later." Anko ends up snuggling up to Naruto in his futon when they all go to sleep. Even if it's only for now, she thinks as she closes her eyes and rests on the chest of the person she loves. 5 hours later, Naruto awoke to a weight on his chest and thought, "Did Tama sneak into my futon? This feels heavier than Tama, though." He glanced at the person. Then he noticed Anko curled up on him. "Naru," she mumbled as she slept. "Hi Anko," he murmurs to her. "Love you," she murmurs in her sleep as she kisses his chest, causing his eyes to widen. As she nuzzles closer to him, he looks down at her and thinks, "Anko loves me, how could I not see it?" After deciding to start brushing her hair while she was sleeping and noticing that everyone else was still asleep, he turned back to face Anko and gave her a gentle prod to wake her up. "Morning Naru-chan," she muttered to him, grinning, her eyes drowsy as she looked up. "Anko, please let me know if you love me." She was wide awake now, trying to think of a way to get off the subject and trying to figure out why he knew, and her eyes widened and flushed violently when he whispered that to her. "Chan, tell me, do you love me?" he whispered to her as he leaned close to her until their noses were almost touching. She closed her eyes, not believing her voice, and started to cry. She huddled, trying not to cry, and whispered, "I never wanted you to know. I have, for a long time, but it wouldn't work. I'm older than you, so you probably hate me now." Still in disbelief at what Naruto had done, she eagerly returned the kiss when he leaned down a bit and gave her a gentle kiss before whipping the tears from her eyes. "Chan, I am going to be part of the CRA and I get a choice of who it is that I take as a wife," he said, causing her to whimper at the loss and exhaustion as she leaned over to him, wanting it to end, but his finger stopped her just inches from his lips. "Chan," he whispered to her, "you were always someone I wanted to choose, but I didn't want to force you into it. I wanted you to be happy and let you choose your life because that's always who you are." "He likes me back, yes," she screamed in her mind as she sprang at him, kissing him deeply in sheer delight as her eyes widened and appeared to sparkle. Naruto happily kissed her back, loving her as much as she loved him, kind of expecting her to lunge at him. She grinned broadly at him and whispered, "You really mean it, Naruto, you'll have me." After a few minutes of making out, Anko released his lips for a moment, allowing them to catch their breath. "Yes Anko, I would be honored to, but not yet. I'm only 15 still. I want to get a little older before I begin getting married to others. But Tama gets that first. She was the first person I loved and the person I spent the most time with," he told her. "Anko Uzumaki, I like it," she whispered, nuzzling him into the crook of his neck with joy, and nodding, too happy to care. As she closed her eyes once more, she thought, "Naruto Sama is part of the CRA. Does that mean that he would? No, stop thinking like that. He is your master Himari. You are to protect him and his family. Not be a lover." The newly dubbed couple was unaware that a certain cat was still awake and heard the entire event. When the group awoke a few hours later for their shift, Anko stood in front of them and said, "Okay, everyone, get ready." Anko muttered, "They don't even have the endurance to deal being up for one full day, they aren't going to cut it." They were all prepared and standing outside when Kakashi's team went inside and passed out, causing Naruto to shake his head. As their shifts alternate, Anko starts discussing his team with Kakashi while her team sets up the perimeter for the day.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.